more. Shobaki, right? Go ahead. And Rima? Reem? No.
Good evening. My name is Rakan Shobaki. I am a master's student in the School of International Studies, and I'm a State Department alumni. My question is, we know that Jordan is mainly and a strategic partner for the United States in the region. But in the light of normalization in the past over 2 to 3 years, we have some fears that increased because maybe the Jordan's role in the peace process maybe will influence because the normalization. So how can the United States ensure and maintain the Jordan's role in the peace process as a main part in the region? Thank you so much.
One thing that I could have said at the beginning of the conversation here, and I thought about that, and I decided not to because I knew an opportunity like the one Mr. Shobaki here has asked would come up that would allow me to say it. So let me say it now. The United States does not have a partner anywhere, and not in this region like we do with Jordan. That's a partnership, and it's important to understand that this is a partnership that's built on respect, and happily, and I've served in many places where it wasn't exactly like this, happily it's a mutual respect. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that for generations now, for decades is maybe an easier way to put it, U.S. presidents, U.S. secretaries of state, U.S. directors of CIA, secretaries of defense, and a variety of others have sought the advice and the counsel of Jordan on the most delicate and most sensitive strategic issues for our interests. Why? Because you know what you're doing, and because we trust you. You're a trusted partner. And states, again, go back to the first point I made in our conversation, states have a lot of interests, and they're, as I said, ruthless and they're bloodless. But when it comes to partnerships, allies, and people with whom you can sit down and have a conversation about what are to you, that state, in this case the United States, our most significant strategic interests, we could have that conversation in theory with a number of people, but we can't have a trusted exchange with a lot of them. That's a smaller circle. So that partnership that has been there for decades through multiple presidencies, administrations to be more proper, multiple of those, it's still there, and I have every reason, and you should, to expect that it will continue to be there in the future. Again, we, the United States, don't have another partnership that looks anything like this one does. We have partnerships in the region. You can just walk around your border and you can figure them all out, right? Look at a map. We have partnerships in the region, but again, let me stress, we don't have another one that looks like this one does, and that is because of the basis of mutual respect and trust. And I'm speaking now as an American. I'm not speaking only Jordan can speak about trust to the United States or the lack, but I'm telling you about ours for Jordan. It's extensive and it's respected. I don't know that you know, maybe you do, I don't know that you realize the tremendous credibility that you carry in the United States, and most particularly in Washington. By the way, one of the blessings of being the ambassador to Jordan rather than some numbers of other places, the moment you say Jordan, I get a smile from that other face that's on the end of the line or on the phone, whether they're sitting in the U.S. administration, whether they're a U.S. journalist or an analyst, an observer, or a member of the U.S. Congress, because they likewise share that respect. On the question of normalization, Abraham Accords, these kinds of things, let's put this in a context. You, Jordan, along with your neighbor, Egypt, were the very first ones to go down this path. You have Wadi Araba, 1994. Even I'm a terrible math student, but even I know 1994 was a few years ago, right? So you were cool before it was cool to be cool, and to be more serious about it, that required an extraordinary amount of courage to do that, and not without risks. No political leader can undertake that kind of an exchange with that magnitude and with that huge amount of history, of strife, of war, of animosity, of injustice, justice. No political leader, no matter who they are, can do that without requiring an extraordinary amount of courage. And like all things in human life, some amount of luck, but an extraordinary amount of courage to make that decision. So again, to put it in common terms, you were cool before it was cool, or bold, to be maybe more serious about this. It is our policy to pursue what we often call regional integration. So every American diplomat knows what regional integration means. But let me step back, and I'll come right back to this because it's important. I'd like to think for you, but it's certainly important for my government. The model that we have for integration, because it worked, it was successful, again, not without flaws, but the model we look at when we talk about this is Europe. In the wake of the Second World War, we had the Marshall Plan. So if you're students of political science, international relations, history, or you just read, you very well are familiar with the Marshall Plan. So the Marshall Plan's deliberate intention was, we can't have this happen again, so we need to get states who decide that despite the fact that, say, in that case, Germany, 2 generations marched into here, all of the rest of Western Europe, and that was a bloody mess. And I'm saying this to you as a man who's married to a German, but this was a bloody mess, and countries decided we can't have this again. So there are 2 ways you cannot have this again. You can build up an army that's so mean and vicious that you think it's going to be bigger and meaner and more vicious than the other guy's army. History shows that doesn't work out usually in the long run, in the short run maybe. So they decided, let's integrate. Let's integrate the economies here. Let's create mutual dependencies. If I'm dependent on you for one thing, you're dependent on me for something else, and we're dependent on her, and she's dependent on him, and so forth, and et cetera. Let's build connectivity. That's the model, and that then led to the European Commission, and that then led through various skips and bounces up to the modern-day European Union. So if you're an observer of the European Union, or a political science student in international relations, or you're just a politics junkie, or to use the American term, a wonk, you like this stuff. Either way, you'll be aware that all of these constructs have beneficial elements, and of course they're human constructions, so they have flaws. None of them are without 1 problem or 20 problems. But it has been the determination of the governments involved in these mixes that we, collectively, we are better off despite the downsides. We are better off because of the positives we get from this experience, despite the things we're not happy about. We're better off collectively this way. That's the model, and that's the logic, and that's the rationale. And that's the same one we apply to regional integration across here. I want to be crystal clear in case you're wondering, and you probably are, and you should be. Is this all just a thin cover for the U.S.'s relentless pursuit of support for Israel? Is anybody wondering that? Everyone's wondering that. Of course you are, right? So regional integration is our aim at not only reinforcing the partnership that, remember I mentioned, that we've got here, that we rely on. It's important to us, first and foremost, again, what was my first point here? States have interests. And for the foremost reason of our interests are at stake, it is crucial to our interests that you, Jordan, are as strong and as stable as you can be and as we can help you be. We can't be the fix-it fairy for every problem. We just don't have the capacity. We just couldn't do it even if we wanted. But we have the ability to do some things. So we're very keen that you are as strong as you can possibly be. Again, why? Because it's in the interest of the United States that you are as strong as you can be. Nothing about anything we need, nothing about anything we want works out well if you're not healthy. Nothing. Not our regional interests, not political issues, not economic issues, not military or security issues. Not one of those issues works out well for us if you're not strong. Likewise, for us, I won't speak for you. If the Israelis are embattled and weak, for us, that's a problem. If the Palestinians don't get a two-state solution, you've heard our president say it. You've heard Tony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, say it in Negev yesterday. That is not good. We want that. We are still continuing to pursue it. We are still continuing to pursue a consulate in Jerusalem. Again, you hear this and you're wondering, I know if you're thinking, yeah, well, why don't you put the might you put into Ukraine behind that? Return to point one I made in our conversation today, because this is a conversation amongst adults, and it's what we call in the U.S. Embassy here, we have a phrase, we say candor among colleagues, right? So we could try to do happy talk here with you, but to use the elevated U.S. diplomatic term, and I will be frank with you, that would be bullshitting you. And I don't plan to bullshit you. So let's be frank with each other and let's have an adult conversation. You're graduate students, you want to be treated like you're serious people. I did when I was a graduate student. You want to be treated like you're serious people. I'm an American diplomat. I want to be treated like I'm a serious person as well. So let's walk our talk and let's be that. So are there differences here? There are. I know this is a long-winded answer for you, but it allowed me an opportunity to bring a couple things out. On normalization, again, we will push for regional integration. You're not going to hear us use that word. You're going to hear us talk about regional integration. We want you to have trade across the region, and to be crystal clear, we're not looking at let's push up the GDP of Israel and get Jordan to just buy stuff from them. That's not the intent. The intent is you have cross-border trade, you collect tariffs. We're concerned about your economy. We're not concerned about their economy. I don't know much about their economy, but it's not my mandate. I am concerned about yours. I want to see job opportunities. I want to see growth here. I want to see trade. I want to see tariffs that you can collect and that your government can grow on. I want to see jobs created. I want to see your industries flourish. Again, return to point one of the conversation. Why? States have interests. It's in the interest of the United States that works for you. Thank you.